welcome to this is what, our 283rd coffee chat. Have you been keeping track, Jim?
No.
I don't know. There's a number. I'm sort of picking the numbers out of the hat. I don't remember. It's been so long. Welcome back. Long time no see and all that. And we have no specific guests today. I think Heather's going to read a poem she wrote for us. No.
Oh, right. Yeah, sure.
Heather's here. Glenn Gary is here. We got Mr. Sale here. Well, Mr. Sale's actually Mr. Bai. Mr. Bai claims he's no longer Mr. Sale.
Yeah, I should change my last name to Bai. Or Bai.
Or Sale by.
Yeah.
But in the end. But
so I'm only here for a few minutes because I'm sort of predisposed. Well, I'm wanted with my other staff, but yeah.
Okay. So we'll spread the word that we've got stuff online on the site to sell. Anybody interested, please click on there and welcome. And we'll get Julian the microphone now, so you can dive in and update us on the state of the automotive industry.
So hi everybody, nice to see all your smiling faces again. Oh, and I see Eric is on with a picture of a red Roadster. That's hot. Yeah, so basically used car values are way up. I don't know if anybody is in the market to sell, but now's a good time. We keep hearing about chip shortages. It's like the echo never goes away. It's like chip shortage. But the entire automotive supply chain is facing struggles due to COVID for reasons other than, chip related stuff. And part of it is that, for example, if you're a factory in Mexico that produces door panels or any other part of a car, it doesn't matter. Just pick anything. It could be wheel bearings or hubs or suspension parts or seats. It's irrelevant. A lot of these producers used to have 3 shifts running 24/7. And they would produce all these components for automotive manufacturers, and not just Tesla, but like every automotive manufacturer. You end up with one manufacturer that will produce video screens for 12 different models of vehicles across 3 different brands or whatever. Anyway, since COVID's rolled around, we've seen a big disparity in access to adequate healthcare and medical preparation and planning and whatnot, which has led to a lack of workers. The lack of workers leads to a lack of supply to these places that are manufacturing parts. So for example, if you're the door panel manufacturer and you can't get enough plastic to make your door panel, even though your region might be good and you might have enough workers for your factory, if your suppliers don't have enough workers for their product and production line, you're going to be starved. So we have a complete starvation right across the entire supply chain on everything from everything. It's not just automotive, it's everything. And so what's happening right now is the worldwide supply of available vehicles is really, really low. It should be around 50 days on average, as in if all manufacturers stop producing cars today, the dealers would all have enough new cars to sell for 50 days or 40 days or something. Well, it's at like 8.5 to 12 days, depending on who you ask right now. So there's very little supply around. And as a result, the value of gas cars and electric cars is through the roof, but the demand for electric cars is outstripping the demand for gas cars. A lot of people who've had a car for a long time, whether it's EV or internal combustion, if they're thinking about time to change, they're way more likely to consider an electric car now than they were 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. We all know that. But if you think about the general population, they're all really getting excited about electric vehicles in a way that they haven't before. So if you consider that the ramp up of electric vehicles in conjunction with the shortage of vehicle availability, it's the perfect recipe for super high values. Glenn, I see you smirking there. And yeah, it's pretty wild. Like we were paying 43 grand for used Tesla Model 3s 6 months ago. Oh. And yeah, like used 2019s. We were buying them all day long. Sometimes I was buying them for 38, but now we're paying 50 grand for some of these used Model 3s. So they, their values are going up like crazy. We're not seeing the same thing in non-Tesla vehicles. Like it's not as extreme in non-Tesla vehicles, but by all means, the numbers are climbing fast, and our number of days for sale, like when we take in a vehicle, we always count the number of days it takes to sell. On average, over the last 12 years, we were something like 48 days average in stock. and now we're closer to 10 days in stock. So it's pretty interesting to see what the demand looks like right now, and it is huge. So yeah, if you have a gas car to trade in on an EV, you'll get more money than ever before. If you have an EV to trade in on an EV, you'll get more money than ever before. And consequently, if you're looking for a near new Tesla, you'll find that it's more expensive than a new one, and the prices just keep climbing, which is really weird. I've been in the car industry a long time, and I'm not used to seeing used stuff sell for more than new. But when you have to wait 6 months for the new stuff, and let's say, for example, you're involved in a collision and your vehicle is damaged or written off and you need a new car, well, what are you going to do? If you want a Kia Soul or you want a Tesla or whatever it may be, and the dealer doesn't have one, then you're going to go look for a used one. And there are more people buying cars than there are cars to be bought. So there you go. There's the used car market in a nutshell.
Does anybody have any questions for Julian at this point? Comments? I heard the National Guard is heading out to the West Coast ports to start driving trucks to haul goods, because hundreds of thousands of containers are sitting on the shore with no truck drivers to haul them away. That's pretty remarkable. Sounds wartime. Norman?
Yeah.
Yeah, my question is, how do you read the future?
Well, you're the guy that's in sales.
Well, no, I'm the purchaser. Now, how do I read the future? Yeah, it's going to be like this for a little while. I mean, ultimately, this supply chain shortage ultimately is the final nail in the coffin for the internal combustion crowd. This supply chain shortage has come at the wrong time for internal combustion legacy auto manufacturers. They will not be able to recover from this. And Tesla is so resilient and has so few stranded assets associated with internal combustion manufacturing. Tesla and NIO and XPeng and these Chinese manufacturers will all grow and mature over the next 2, 3, 4 years as the others all atrophy. It's going to be a gross, expensive, slippery, messy downhill wipeout for all the legacy internal combustion manufacturers. And prices on used stuff are going to stay high. Prices on new stuff are going to continue to climb because of the extra money required to move goods around. Like Tesla is spending way more money to move parts around. Like when you have to hire a jumbo jet to get containers directly to your factory so that you can build parts, well, that's a lot more expensive than ordering it 6 months ahead of time and having it put on the freighter and having it brought over. But so Tesla and any other manufacturer who's actually trying to win right now is spending a horrific amount of time, effort, money, and logistics input trying to keep the wheels turning. And Tesla's just done a better job than everybody else has. But it's going to be like this for at least 2 years.
Julian, when do you see NIO arriving?
I don't know. U.S. regulators are. I think they're working on that for the US right now. And Canada is just a tiny little grain of sand. Like Canada is nothing to automotive manufacturers. We just don't buy enough cars to even be on the map. But we'll see access to big, high quality Chinese brands in Canada after they enter the United States. So I bet you within a year, we will see at least 1 or 2 Chinese brand vehicles on the roads in the US. But they're going to have to do the same thing that, how Tesla's fought in a bunch of different states in order to be able to sell their cars in a different model. Well, there's a lot of union activity and there's a lot of government protectionism that happens all over the United States that is deliberately intended to make it hard for newcomers to launch and succeed. So there's going to be a period of stagnant, existence for these guys like BYD. Which stands for Build Your Dreams, but some engineers say it stands for Borrow Your Design. They've been here since like 2012, and they still don't sell anything. There's a BYD rep that lives in Victoria that's servicing Western Canada, and I think they've got a couple of buses on the road and whatnot. But hey, Glenn.
Yeah, yeah. So having spoke to that guy, they do have a fair amount of buses in Canada, and I said we asked the question about with regards to consumer vehicles. And he said it is, well, 2 things. The Chinese market is sucking up everything they can make now. That's one. And they don't have to pay a hockey sock of money to bring it across the Pacific. And two, their the whole amalgamation process, so where you prepare a car to be sold in a different market, they're not prepared to do that yet. So it could take a while for BYD to come, but they've got probably of any EV maker on the planet, probably the biggest selection across different body styles of anybody.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Glenn, it's great that you point that out. They do have quite a good model selection. I've looked at their paper catalog of all things, and they build like probably 40 different variations and versions of vehicles. They have a huge catalog. But in order to get anything for sale over here, the first thing they're going to need to do is manufacture over in the United States or Canada or Mexico. So it's a NAFTA deal, because anything that comes from China, unless it has a huge amount of American components in it, which is not going to happen, obviously, is going to be subject to big tariffs and fees. And the US is all about protecting the US right now. And they're all about keeping things, they want to keep manufacturing in-house, because we already know what happens when they ship it all offshore. Like that's where we're stuck right now. So yeah, it's going to take a horrifically large investment in order for them to set up factories. Mercedes and BMW, they built factories in Ohio and Tennessee, right? There was a time when Honda was built in Japan. Well, now their Honda transmission plant in Columbus, Ohio, builds most transmissions for Honda for everything that goes in North American vehicles. Well, Toyota did the same thing. Toyota's building in Texas right now. Nissan builds in Tennessee. So all these non-American companies have had to build factories here.
And down in Ontario for both Toyota and Honda.
Yeah. There's big production in Canada. Well, there was. Now they're all shut down because they don't have any staff or parts. But it's going to take a while. And back to the battery shortage thing. It's really nice to say, yeah, we're going to build all this stuff. Like GM has said, well, Ford has said, we're going to build this big battery pavilion, and it's going to be amazing. And yeah, they probably will. But EV manufacturers like BYD and Tesla and all the others, they've been working on supply chain for battery electric materials for like over 10 years. And GM has just left it to LG, like, hey, we'll build this many cars. Can you build some batteries for us? Sure. Well, yeah, we could do 100,000 here and 100,000 there, but that's different than doing 5 million, So until BYD and these other Chinese manufacturers have access to enough materials to build another factory's worth of car production sustainably moving down the line for years to come, they won't start building a factory because they know they're not going to be able to feed it. So yeah, with the supply chain, especially for battery electric stuff, is going to have to do a lot of maturing before we see any real growth. And there's only one manufacturer who's actually poised to win every time right now, and that's Tesla, because they put in the work. It just comes down to work, and they did the work, and they're still doing the work.
We've got a battery shortage, and Bolts are all replacing theirs. What does that do to their supply chain?
Well, it cuts it in half.
Yeah,
it cuts it in half. I was just talking with it's funny, I was just talking with Andrew from GeoZone. He was just here this morning, and he's converted to hydrogen now. He's got like 12 Mirais on the road. And I asked him, we'll get to the battery thing in a sec, but I got to tell you this. Just give me a sec. I got to close the door. I'll do the battery thing first, and then I'll tell you what I heard about hydrogen today, which is interesting anyway. But yeah, the battery shortage thing. Yeah. So if you imagine that pretty much every Hyundai Kona ever built, and I don't know how many they've built, 500,000 or something like that since 2019, but that's worldwide. The Hyundai Nero and the Kia Souls with the big batteries and the Chevy Bolts are all getting new batteries. So, for example, I talked to Hyundai the other day because I've got a 2021 Kona in stock. And I got a lady that says, well, maybe I'll just buy a brand new 2022 Kona, but Hyundai doesn't have any of those in Canada. You can order one and you wait 3 months or 4 months or something like that. And then the vehicle shows up. And I said to her, well, would you rather be in a position where you buy the used 2021 right now, and then you can take the battery warranty claim after you put 200,000 K on the car, and they'll give you a brand new battery? I'm like, to me, that's a really good deal. Whereas if you buy a brand new 2022 today that's got the latest battery in it that doesn't have access to a recall, then the battery you get is a battery you got. So for me, I'm thinking, geez, if I was an owner, I'd rather buy one that has a recall outstanding, and I'll get my free battery after a couple 100,000 K. And then you can either keep the car and start your, 10, 12, 15 year lifespan later. Anyway, so there's some interesting dynamics that didn't exist before. But in terms of supply, like Jenner has, or not Jenner, Wheaton has something like 55 bolts in stock and they're not allowed to sell them. These are brand new 2022s that are on floor plan. So the dealer's stuck with these things. They're not allowed to sell them. GeoZone was told by General Motors, because they charge their bolts all the way to full and run right down to empty. GM said, you are not allowed to use these cars. You must stop driving them. You must bring them to the dealer and we will buy them all back from you. You cannot drive these cars. They're a fire hazard. So it's like, on one hand, GM is trying to build these 2022 Bolt BUVs, but those that have left the factory up to this point still have the bad battery in them. So Wheaton did one battery. They got a replacement for a 2022 today, and they're selling it this weekend. And one by one, as they receive these batteries, they're going to be selling those cars. And then all the batteries that come out of those things, instead of being on the roads and equating to profitable sales for these manufacturers, those batteries are now going to have to go into second life storage in some kind of alternative format. They'll go into shipping containers and be used as stationary storage or something. But what a waste of time, energy, materials, and everything else, right? So, given that the supply chain doesn't even have enough to meet the demand of the new car purchases that should be happening right now, you couple that with the fact that, all these South Korean batteries that are produced in the last 3 years are going to have to be replaced. That basically sets the industry behind by pretty much a year and a half of full capacity. Like new production is being made for batteries. There are new battery factories under construction and capacity is always going up. But these other manufacturers like Hyundai, Kia, and Chevrolet, they're not going to be able to sell the kind of numbers that they want to sell because the battery supply that they're buying is going to go into older cars instead of producing new cars. So it's going to really slow things down big time. But Tesla's not weighed down by that. So
Is GM covering Wheaton for the interest on their vehicle acquisition loans?
I'm sure they are. They're normally on floor plan from GMAC or whatever, but so generally the dealer would pay interest on the vehicle. They don't have to pay for the vehicle. They just pay interest on it while it sits there. But because they're non-sellable, the dealer's not going to be on the hook for that money until they have a battery in it, and then it'll become due, right?
Right.
But those cars are all pre-sold anyway. I'm sure as soon as they get batteries, those things will be flying out the door. I talked to Duncan Hyundai about my 2021 Kona, and they said call the dealer that sold the vehicle new, because that's where it should go for the battery replacement. And I said, well, I bought the vehicle in Chilliwack, and the vehicle was no longer attached to that dealer. So they said, okay, well, you can get the battery done anywhere. But they said they're going by VIN. So essentially, you call your dealer and you say, hi, I'd like to take my new battery now, and they go in order of VIN sequence. So Hyundai and Kia are replacing the oldest batteries first, but the consumer has to call the dealer and make an appointment and ask them to order the battery. They'll produce a battery for the customer for that VIN and bring it in. It takes a couple hours. They take out the old one, slam in the new one, and wave goodbye. No charge to the customer. But there's a huge backlog. It's going to take years to get these things in. And I would imagine the manufacturers are going to try and go as slowly as possible for the battery replacements, because every battery that they use for a warranty replacement is a battery that they cannot put in a new vehicle. And a warranty replacement is a dead cost, and a new vehicle sale represents some profit. So, it's probably like for every 10 new vehicle batteries they produce, they'll allow one to be produced for warranties. But it's not like, Wheaton or Jenner is going to get 50 batteries to do 50 recalls. It's like, that's not happening. So it's going to be a long time.
Yeah,
The Takata airbags, it's been 15 years. We've been waiting for Takata airbags in Hondas and Toyotas and Kias and everything else. They're still not replaced. So,
yeah. And if you look at the profit margin on those cars, I mean, the legacy companies aren't making any money on their EVs yet, because they haven't hit scale. So now they're into negative margin on every one of them.
yeah.
Like a huge way.
Yeah, it's not pretty.
Do the manufacturers have any recycling capacity yet? I know Tesla's claiming to have something or setting something up to recycle, but does Kia and GM, the South Korean batteries, is there anything for recycling yet? And would it make sense for them to recycle these old batteries as opposed to using them for some other purpose?
No, they're not going to recycle those because they've already invested all the time and energy and materials and cost and freight and insurance and everything else. Like these things have a lot of cost associated with them. And all they have to do to make them super safe is just limit the capacity a little bit. But these things are worth big bucks for stationary storage.
Stationary storage right now is, somewhere like $1,000 a kilowatt, where production is somewhere around 125, 150 for most manufacturers.
Yeah.
So yeah, those things are gold.
Yeah, they're worth huge bucks. So, I mean, Nissan did a pilot project in Japan where they set up a backup storage for a stadium using something like 2,000 Nissan Leaf batteries. They did another project where Nissan took Leaf batteries and they removed, like a Leaf battery has something like 96 cells in it. And so Nissan was taking groups of 12 or 14 of these cells and using them in a weighted base of basically an LED street lamp with a solar panel on the top, use Nissan Leaf batteries as ballast in the bottom. And they could take these street lamps and put them in economically depressed areas. And the street lamps would reduce crime in impoverished third world countries where street lighting was a major social problem. They don't have infrastructure. So Nissan's gone after used EV batteries and found really neat ways to repurpose them because they're too good to be recycled, but they're not good enough for cars, so there's that in-between stage. I would imagine that all the LG Chem batteries that are out there that are going to be decommissioned for automotive use will end up in big scale commercial storage. The battery hookup website is pretty cool. They had something like 6,000 or 7,000 Leaf batteries in stock at some point, and they pretty much parted them all out. And a lot of those things have gone over to Lithuania and Bosnia and Jordan and all sorts of other places where you might run into scarcity of fuel. And now that you can get cheap solar panels and cheap used EV batteries, all of a sudden people that have been burning diesel for decades are now looking at stationary battery storage and solar as a means to power their communities. So there's a huge demand for used batteries, and they're not going to be recycled until they're literally dead. Somebody's going to use those things. Oh, hydrogen story. Yeah. Okay. So for you guys who want to know about hydrogen, I talked with Andrew from Geozone a while ago because he's brought me a fleet of Model Ys to sell. And I said, what are you doing? And he says, well, I'm switching over to hydrogen Toyota Mirais. And I thought it was kind of weird because I talked to the truck driver who actually brings the hydrogen from Vancouver in his Class 8 semi on a steel flat deck. And he manually opens all these valves and stuff in order to feed the hydrogen into the station. And he told me that they can't fill very fast because the bylaws for sound and SANIC don't allow the pump to operate at full capacity. So it takes a really long time to pressurize the hydrogen. And they're supposed to run at 10,000 PSI, but they can only run at 3,000 PSI because the pump's too loud if they actually run at 10,000. And they can only bring over a truck every 4 weeks to refill the station in Victoria because that's all the time they have and all the supply they have in Vancouver. But they anticipate having to come over more often because every time you run hydrogen from the storage into the high pressure system that fuels the cars, there's a certain amount of leakage, and it's actually quite a lot. So the more you use the station, the more you really need to have high pressure because the leakage is extreme. And anyway, it's kind of a grim picture. I talked to the driver for half an hour and I was thinking, wow, so you have a 35,000 pound truck with hydrogen tanks on the back, 3 of these little cubicles full of hydrogen canisters coming over from Richmond.
Hearing this?
I am listening.
Yeah, heading over to Victoria, burning diesel to get to the station in Victoria to fill up the hydrogen station here so they can run 2 cars. I said, how many cars do you have running hydrogen in Victoria? They said 2. So now that Geozone is going, they've got, Andrew didn't say how many, but I think he's got 12 on order and he's got 5 or 6 on the roads now. And I said, okay, so what about the metrics? What are we talking about, Andrew? And he says, well, they're $50 to fill. They go 500K. And I said, well, isn't that way more expensive than the Y or the X or any of these other Teslas that he's been using? And he's had Leafs, he's had all sorts of EVs. And he says, no, because he's paying 43 cents a minute at the DC fast charger from Tesla to supercharge his Ys. And he says, basically, They take an hour and a half to fill. He was talking about a Model X. I've got a Raven X 100D outside. And he said even at the 250 kilowatt fast charger in Abbotsford that they fill that Raven X at, he said you're 90 minutes to go from 0 to full. And they're towing a 5,000 pound trailer with this thing from Abbotsford up into Vancouver and then over to Victoria. And he says we actually need the full range. And that Model X will do exactly 300K towing 5,000 pounds at, the posted speed limit. But they use 275 kilometers worth of range to get their job done every single day. So they're paying $50 a day to supercharge these Model X's. So he says the cost, you'd think the electricity is way cheaper, but it's not. He says if you're supercharging, it's not cheaper. So from his perspective on a purely, just talking about cost, he's got to factor in the time of his staff into the cost of the charging. So if he's paying $50 a day for electricity, because he waits at the supercharger until the car hits 100%, he doesn't leave at 80%. It would be way cheaper if he did, but you pay by the minute. So he's factoring in the time of his, the cost to pay the staff into his charging time. And for that reason, he's like, no, hydrogen's a better deal. So we'll see what happens. Hey, Glenn.
But a Mirai can't tow anything. In fact, it can barely get out of its own way.
Yeah, they're super slow and weak, but he is putting more people in Mirais and ditching the trailers. More Mirais, more people. And he's ripped all the interiors out of them. They just have a plywood interior. And he's taken all the seats out except the driver's seat, and they're just in pure cargo mode. That's it. So that's what he's trying. But he swaps out his vehicles every year. So we'll check in a year and see how it goes. Right? He's also under the impression.
Is he getting free hydrogen?
No, he has to pay for it. Yeah, he has to pay for it. And here's the funny thing: there's only one place on the island to fill. H-Tech apparently claims that they're going to be putting in another station in Nanaimo, but we'll see about that. And then the other thing that he said was that, I had said, so if you fill a Mirai or any other hydrogen car, it takes about 45 minutes for the hydrogen system to pump enough hydrogen into their secondary holding tank to dispense it into a car. So you can't have a 5-minute fill followed by another 5-minute fill. It's a 5-minute fill, a 45-minute wait, and then you can do another 5-minute fill. So if he has two drivers that show up at the same time, and they're both basically empty and they get there at the same time, well, he was frustrated about having to wait for the superchargers. Well, he's going to wait for the hydrogen station as well. And if the more of these cars he has on the road, the more he's going to consume the fuel. But the driver who was bringing the hydrogen out to Victoria told me that he only has enough hydrogen to fuel 2 vehicles. And that's why he has to come every 4 weeks. He used to come every 6 weeks. But with 2 vehicles, he has to come every 4 weeks. So how often does this Class 8 tractor trailer burning diesel have to come over from Vancouver on the ferry to feed 6 or 8 or 10 or 12 Mirais? Is that like every 2 days you run a tractor trailer with hydrogen over?
Jim,
Yeah.
do you remember what the maximum loadout for hydrogen was at that station? Was that 150 kilos?
Yes.
So, yeah, 30 fills, and wastage.
Yeah, there's a lot of wastage. The driver told me they lose like half of it. So, it evaporates. I guess there's a pressure release thing, and you got to keep it cold and you got to keep it under pressure, but it bleeds off all the time. There's a vent pipe and it's always venting.
Yeah. And one of the points we made to Saanich Council when we were trying to stop it was that even H-Tech's report said don't put this in a residential area because of the compressor noise.
Yeah.
And so now they can't use the compressor for 8 hours of the day because they're not allowed to use it between 11 and 7. So that adds to the problems they've got. And I almost want to really just share this with the council at Saanich and say, you're doing all these environmentally responsible things, but do you realize you've added the number of emissions to the...
Yeah, from the diesel truck.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and the bleeding off represents a lot of energy spent to generate that hydrogen in the first place. You're
Exactly.
just bleeding it back out. So that's just 100%
And-
waste.
And it wasn't produced by electrolysis either.
Well, he thinks it was, and H-Tech has told Andrew that it is.
It's not.
Yeah, it's not.
So when I brought up to Andrew that this may not be the greenest hydrogen, he says, yeah, they're using hydroelectric power and they're doing development for new ways to use electrolysis. And I said, it's a really simple process. I've created hydrogen at home. It's not hard. You can do it with a 12-volt car battery, literally. I did it as a science experiment with my kids. You know, off one electrode, you get hydrogen, the other one, you get oxygen. It's pretty simple. But anyway, yeah, they told him that they're only using electrolysis to create this, and that they're using excess energy that's, you know, a byproduct of who knows what. So they're trying to sell it as something super, super green, but I just see waste upon waste upon waste upon waste upon waste.
And I think you should maybe ask him, well, or tell him what he's going to be paying once they do produce it by electrolysis, because it'll be about a lot more than what he's paying now.
Yeah, well, there's no protection on pricing. I mean, if the cost of the hydrogen goes up by 50% and they start to factor in the cost of trucking, you know, like so if one truck comes over here and let's say they have enough fuel for 15 fill-ups, well, 15 fill-ups is $750. Well, the cost to get that Class 8 tractor on the ferry is about $325 both ways. So you got $700 plus the cost of the diesel. So you probably have around $125 worth of diesel to get the truck over here and back. Then you got to pay the wage for the driver. So it's an 8-hour turnaround time at $30 an hour. So, you know, for the $750 worth of hydrogen that you could dispense with one fill up, you've spent close to $1,000, probably slightly more than $1,000 just to get the hydrogen from Vancouver to Victoria. So who's paying for that, and how long until that bill gets flipped over to the consumer?
Well, and if he's going to put, sorry, excuse me, Glenn, if they're going to put more drivers into more Mirais, why not just put more drivers into more Teslas?
Yeah.
And scrap the trailer that way, if that's that argument. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well,
Anyway.
somebody's footing the bill for it. I'm sure Natural Resources Canada has got grant money going their direction to
There's something going on.
research, right?
They also
Well,
have 50
okay,
million
so
from the
this is the-
province.
Yeah, the hydrogen itself is already like $13 per kilogram is already subsidized by $7, and that's for gray hydrogen, not green. And the subsidy is us.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like a great plan, you know, so we got one local guy who's trying it out. We'll see what happens, but it doesn't, to me, it seems like it's all wrong all the way, but I'm biased. I sell EVs, you know, so.
Yeah, but hydrogen cars are EVs too, you know.
Sure they are.
Yeah. You can
That's what they
drink
tell
what
ya.
comes out of the tailpipe.
Back to batteries, Tesla seems to be ramping up all aspects of its production from on the semi to their, what do you call the grid storage that they're putting in.
Power
They're
packs,
making
mega
contracts
packs,
with this-
power walls. Yeah.
Yeah, and but the big grid ones, which have like thousands of power walls together and equivalent, where are they getting all these batteries from? Are they that confident that the new battery plant in California or Nevada, I guess it is going to be able to produce enough batteries for all this? And I think this one in China is coming on board too, because I understand the Model Ys coming out of Berlin are going to have Chinese batteries.
Well, Tesla has battery manufacturing right now, and they can produce enough batteries to fill all of the cars that they can build. If they could build more cars, they would have less batteries available for mega packs and power walls and grid stuff. But right now, they don't have enough parts to build enough cars to consume all of their battery capacity. So thankfully, instead of like other car manufacturers who are like, you know, so Hyundai, for example, sure, can you build 1 million Konas? Well, let's assume that they could build 1 million Konas and they could access all the parts to build all the vehicles. Well, they wouldn't have enough battery supply to fill those because they don't make their own batteries. They're buying those from other manufacturers. But Tesla is building their own batteries, and they also have Panasonic and others partnered up with them and they've already, bought excess capacity starting years ago. So Tesla's planned for this expansion and has put in purchase orders that are massive compared to everybody else. So yeah, Tesla has batteries available for their power walls, but they're secondary to automotive.
They're moving over
Yeah.
to this 4680 battery, I think it is, the new larger battery.
Yeah.
And it's just coming into production now, I think. And what happens if they run into production hell with those like they did with the Model 3?
Well, they will run into production hell, but that's why they bought Highbar and have invested in other battery manufacturing technology so that they can be a little ahead of the curve when it comes to manufacturing capacity. But the other thing is, like, Tesla has a production plant in California that's already producing 4680s, and Tesla hasn't specifically said where those cells are going. But the word on the street is they've got a bunch of 4680s running around in vehicles on the road right now that Tesla hasn't said to the consumer, oh, by the way, your Model Y has 4680s in it.
If you can go back to Battery Day, September 2020, pretty much all this was laid out. So things that aren't volume and weight restricted, like Model 3 standard ranges, right? They only have 50 kilowatts. So there's a whole lot more room left in that box. They're going to lithium ion phosphate batteries, which are cheaper, easier to produce. Grid storage, they're going over to LFP as much as possible as well. So, and that's a different stream from the pure
Nickel aluminum. Yeah.
Yeah, and NCA batteries that run almost all the other cars in the Tesla Fold. And then you have the form factors. I mean, they're still producing Model S and X with 1860s, 1865s, right?
Well, they're 2170s now.
Yeah, that hasn't been proven yet. There are 2170s are all in all the 3s and Ys right now. The 4680s are going to be key to things like Cybertruck and the Semi. Those are the key things for them. You hope, Berlin, the Berlin factory will run 2170s made in China first, but they hope to, when they start making them in Germany, and when they start making them in Austin, those will be 4680s.
I have a question. I don't understand 4680, 2170, etc. What
Can I answer?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so here's the deal. Hi, by the way. So back in the day when Panasonic, okay, back to the Roadster, which did I mention I bought a Roadster today?
Yes.
So when Tesla wanted to build these things, the 18650, which is it's a cylindrical cell. It's 18 millimeters wide and 65 millimeters long. The 0 on the end is just for fun. So that's what 18650 means, 18 millimeters by 65 millimeters. So that had an old patent from Panasonic that had already expired. Panasonic developed a laptop battery, or a battery, which got used in laptops and cordless phones and, power supplies and all sorts of stuff. These things were around for a long time, but the patents were up on that. Every other pouch cell battery and prismatic battery that was available on the market at the time that Tesla built the Roadster would have cost Tesla way more in royalty dues to use. So they used the 18650 because it was an old design and it was proven. Since then, battery chemistry has come an awfully long way to pack way more energy density into that same 18650 cell design. But other manufacturers found after testing that there was a better volumetric efficiency available in a 2170, so 21 millimeters wide, 70 millimeters long. Less packaging material per power output or per gram of mass, right? So the 2170 became a more favorable version of that cylindrical type of battery, which allowed for slightly better energy density and capacity with the same amount of total pack weight. So that's why you hear these 2170s. Then the 4680 is just an evolution of the same thing with a bigger, stronger case that requires less packaging. So if you look at any Tesla battery or any battery in general, really, there's a whole bunch of packaging material. If you look at a Nissan Leaf, they've got 96 cells. Well, each of the cells are 2 pouches inside one, what looks like a sardine can. and then they're all held together. They really do look like sardine cans. I got photos I can show you, but there's a lot of steel packaging in these things, and then they're held together with nuts and bolts, and then they're in a case, and then those cases are in cases, and it's like, you know, the Russian dolls. You've got material and material and material and material. So if you build 18650 battery packs, the 18650 batteries are just little small things. They don't have a lot of structural integrity. If you have 100 of those together, it's like putting an elastic band around a bunch of pens. You know, it's still pretty wobbly, right? Well, if you increase the diameter and you go up to this the new 4680 cell, you've got, you know, almost 5 centimeters in diameter, 80 millimeters long. This is a big, stubby, fat can. Well, those things there have so much structural integrity and strength within the actual shell that those can be used as a structural member of the battery pack, allowing the manufacturers to omit what would be basically the pack structure that they stack multiples of inside the entire battery vehicle pack. So you get to eliminate and reduce the packaging, the manufacturing complexity, and the cost, and a whole bunch of mass by changing the form factor of the battery. Then Tesla further developed a design called a tabless design, which allows electrons to enter and leave the battery with a way shorter path. The physical path for electrons to move in and out of these battery cells in a 4680 is considerably shorter than what you had in 2170s or 18650s. So charge quicker, let go of energy quicker, much stronger, much lighter, and able to be packaged in such a way that is cheaper to manufacture and lighter and stronger. So the 4680 cell factor is going to be a game changer.
Anyway, the upshot is you can go to YouTube, do Tesla Battery Day 2020, and do like a summary, because it was like an hour and a half long, but it is so good, and that it tells you exactly what their plan is. What I was going to talk about today, and I'll try and very quickly, is so Julian's doing he has the used market weighed off now, and the upshot for what he just said was he's buying. You're not going to get any better money if you have an EV to sell. I'm on the other side, on the new side. If you're looking to buy a new EV, get your bids in now, get your reservations as soon as you can. Has anybody bought an EV in the last 6 months? Hands up, anyone? Not you, Julian. So Jim, you bought one in the last 6 months. How long did it take to deliver?
No, I think it was about 3 months from ordering the Y until I flew over and got it.
Okay, that was the same for me. I ordered a Y in July, and it was 15 weeks to deliver. My 2.5 years ago was, I think, somewhere like 6 weeks. Today, if you're ordering a Tesla Model 3 SR, it's minimum of 6 months. The Model Y is 5.5 months out because demand is stupid, right? So what was the other thing? When I bought my Model 3 2.5 years ago, the one site in Vancouver was delivering 70 Teslas that day. Last Sunday, the 3 sites in Vancouver were delivering 120 Teslas that day.
Weekend, or is that daily?
That was that was what was happening that Sunday. So the rest of the world is waking up. They're starting to get it. And you guys are already on the leading edge of all this. There's so much good stuff going on right now. Pricing, you can see Tesla's reacting to demand. The Model 3 that 2.5 years ago I bought for just under 55 grand had dropped about 2 grand in price over the last couple of years, and it is back up to just under 55 grand. And that was just a recent pay increase. A lot of the other manufacturers, they're seeing kind of the same thing. Yeah, Get out there, get onto it, because the world has woken up and they're moving in the right direction. Tesla is continuing to march down the path of producing 50% more EVs every year. If you look at VW, GM, Stellantis, and Ford, with all of their everything they plan to do in the next 5 years, they hope to get to some really big numbers. And the fact is, all three of them put together may get to what Tesla is going to be producing in 2025. And all three of them together, with their current plans, will produce half of what Tesla's producing in 2030. So things are moving along quite rapidly. Okay, I got the link posted in now. There's a battery day link you guys can check out later at your leisure. What about Nissan? Nissan, how very interesting. So they actually had control of their own batteries a number of years ago, and somehow in the power struggle between the native Japanese in their power structure and Goshen, who was not Japanese, they decided to sell off the company who was making the batteries. So Nissan has officially said they're retiring the Leaf platform. They're going to come out with a compact utility vehicle. The Ariya, it's going to look great. It looks awesome, but I don't see them producing them in big numbers. And Nissan, because they don't have scale, is going to end up needing to sell those things for different. You hear us saying Tesla a lot. As you know, philosophically, this association, every full BEV is a good BEV because it's taking somebody from buying another legacy internal combustion engine LICE car. Are there better than others? Yeah, obviously. VW is getting serious. They're the legacy company that looks to be the most serious so far. They're throwing $80 billion at it, or $85 billion. They're taking their flagship factory in Germany, the Wolfsburg one, and they're going to try and convert that to full EV. GM and Ford have made a lot of noise. You hear postings about battery factories and stuff, and their partner, Ford's partner, is LG. Anybody remember who GM's partnering with? Could be SK, or it could be LG as well. I can't remember. Anyway.
Was LG.
Yeah. And, but they're, so far their investments are totaling about 35 billion. So that's kind of gives you the scale of who's getting serious here. There's another guy on YouTube, Lars Stridlander, and he's got a site called Best in Tesla. And he recently did a show where he looked at what everybody is going to be producing, or what they say they're going to be producing, if they actually do produce. And he totals that up and puts them into a thing you can see. And I'll just post that now. So that is everything I had to say about new vehicles. And Don.
Do you know anything about when the new Nissan replacement for the upgrade from the Leaf or the Ariya or whatever it's called, the little sort of small SUV is coming on? And is it going to have the same batteries that the old Nissan had, or is it and the Leaf had, or is it a new technology in batteries? And who does Nissan get its batteries from?
Sometime 2022. I don't know about the actual makeup of the batteries, but the batteries will have and a thermal battery management system.
Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate
Okay,
it.
everybody.
Right on
I'm
2 o'clock. You better run.
Yeah, do remember we still have t-shirts, men's, women's, and others. And we also have masks and stickers for sale. And if you do order them, they'll be delivered zero emission, of course.
What, GeoZone is helping us with that?
Guys, we have some good news. 2 of our
Oh.
3 offspring have just bought Teslas.
Whoa.
One of them got an X 2017, and he bought it about 4 months ago or so. So it wasn't, it was a good time to buy, and he got a really good deal on it. And he's got lifetime charging on the Superchargers. The other one is a 3 bought in Winnipeg, and they have to go as far as Saskatoon to pick it up. I'd like to hear what people say about that. And the 2 clubs, it seems odd. That's quite a distance.
Well, you order through Julian, he'll have it brought right to Kentucky, or View Royal, sorry.
Yeah, right.
Well, I have Dave Grove, and he's willing to drive just for fun. Unless there's an election, and then he's busy. And then he's available after the election again. So we'll deliver anywhere, Dave, right?
Anywhere in North America. I
Yeah.
won't get wet. I won't get my feet wet.
No, you don't want to do that.
See you, Glenn.
Yeah.
Okay. I keep on talking about this, but replacing a battery that is not run down at all. It's a 6-year battery in a Nissan Leaf 2015. And I just wanted to contact some people who are doing the replacements. And I know that it's hard to get a 40 kilowatt hour battery, but that's the kind I'm thinking of doing and replacing it, and then selling my older battery, which is a 24 kilowatt hour. So
Do you want
Julian,
a phone number?
sorry?
Do you want a phone number?
Sure, that'd be great.
Yeah, there's a guy named Tom Sawyer that's doing it. Let me give you his number. It is 778 700 8088.
8088.
Yeah, that's Tom Sawyer. He's really good for that. And then the other guy that does it, his name is Kelly. He's already done a few 40 kilowatt hour upgrades in Leafs. And Kelly's got an inside line with some auto wrecker in the States that sells the batteries for cheap. But his phone number is 250 882 8458.
8458.
His name is Kelly, and he's already done them. Both of those people I just gave you have already done many battery swaps in Victoria.
And they buy a good used battery too?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. They're both interested in your battery, and they can both get for you a bigger, newer battery. And they both have the capacity to install the software and hardware required to make your car talk to a newer, bigger battery.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. And they're here in
Victoria.
BC. Oh, in Victoria. Okay. Thanks so much. That's all.
You're welcome.
Okay.
That's excellent. Good stuff, Julian. Thank you. Take care. Happy hunting.
Yeah, you too. Thanks a lot. Anybody want to
Right on.
see a Roadster? Come and check it out before it's gone, because it's not going to be here long.
Right on.
Bye.
Bye. Well, that was a lot of fun.
Mhm.
They were both fighting to get off the air. I don't know what that's about. They're probably going for a beer across the road.
Yeah.
I guess that Roadster's just increased in value quite a bit.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, well, with Gruber Motors burning about 20 of them,
Yeah.
that
20 to 30.
that the pool is reduced.
What's this about a bunch of them burning? Was some garage having the garage go up in flames?
Yeah, Gruber Motors in Phoenix. He was specializing in replacing the battery packs in the Roadsters, and he had a fire and gutted the whole building, burned the entire steel roof off of it.
28 cars he lost.
Yeah, close to 30.
I can't remember how many of them were sold. It wasn't very many.
It's not his first fire either. They had a fire some years ago. He lost 20 then. He's in the Roadster elimination business, it sounds like. There is one little thing I was going to mention. This is changing back to Tesla, unfortunately, is the business about the service center. Just thought I'd let you know there was online this notice that, hey, we're getting it, it's by Costco, blah, blah, but it's not an official announcement. Heather, do you want to speak to this subject a little bit or no?
You can tell them it's at my house. It's okay.
It's in the barn.
I
They're not
think
gonna put it in that place that they've destroyed the whole hillside and to put a electric dealership there. It just doesn't make sense to me. You know,
Well,
on the environmental side, destruction city.
they are supposedly going to have a place, but it's not going to be ready for a year. So they are looking for some temporary sites in between, but nothing is confirmed on that, wherever that would be. So we're just going to have to wait and see. We'll let you know when we hear, we'll let you know.
It's at my house.
It's in the barn, Glenn. It's in the barn.
It could be in a barn.
So yeah, we don't know for sure where it's going to be. The best we heard talking to the top dogs at Tesla, Heather and I, last Thursday, was they're a signature away from nailing down the permanent site. They have to build a building, so it could be 2 years.
Yeah, it'll be at least a year and a half.
And the temporary site, they're looking 5,000 to 10,000 square feet of space with 50 to 100 car park spots, parking spaces, is kind of the range. So 5,000 with 50 parking spots is the absolute minimum, I'd say. Sounds big, but it's actually not that big.
Anyways, nothing is official. So when it's official, you'll hear it coming straight from Tesla, not from somebody who's talking
Online
Tesla from somebody else who got it from somebody else.
or the News Gazette, which likes to
Yeah,
broadcast
well,
stories about what may be happening. There's, you know, this breaking news stories, but it's a rumored story. They even say that right in the headline. Well, why are they broadcasting stories that are still in rumor state? However, I think they want to fill up their pages.
I think so.
And I spoke to the Gazette yesterday and underlined the fact that it was a rumor about 5 times. I like to think that it went from being, oh, looks like this is true, to being rumor. I think he picked up my word rumor because I said it about 25 times in the interview. And he didn't quote me, by the way. That David is not me. It's David Lewis, who put the stuff up online. Some of you may know him. He's been to a couple of our events. He is a local owner. And he likes to rebroadcast like Drive Tesla Canada. And there's another one, which are, you know, reputable enough sites, but they're putting up drawings with outlines of the piece of property that Tesla's got, because some guy knows some developer who works for some electrician at some architectural firm who said he saw a picture of and knows and talked to somebody that. It's kind of that kind of a rumor mill. And it just, whether it's true or not, I don't know, but it's a bit too thick. And so let's wait for the official announcement and then we'll know. It is coming. Tesla's told us it's a huge priority, has been for 5 years, but it's been difficult for them to get into Victoria, and they're still trying very hard and they're working on it. They're this close. Yes.
Slightly different topic.
Yes.
Have you heard anything more about the measurement standards? The change and what they're what the federal government is doing for that?
Nothing new since I heard a few months ago that it was going to be 18 months they expected until they could implement. I think the intention now is to switch to kilowatt-hour charging, but it could be another, so that would bring it down to like 15 months now or something. I can't remember.
Right.
Maybe you recall I was speaking about it last summer somewhere.
Yeah, it was sometime, I think May or June.
Or was it that
something
far
like
back? Okay, so maybe
think
we're
it was
down to,
June.
you know, I'm thinking a year away from now, but
Yeah.
we've had our election now. I don't think the election has anything to do with it.
No.
It's supposed to be a Measurements Canada thing, but I don't know that there's any political will to push it through faster or anything. So
Mm.
I'm expecting it to be a year. I'm hoping no more.
Yeah, because I was concerned about how, like, the changing out from the systems that people have already at different locations, and how that would really flow out, whether that would be very efficient or not.
Yeah.
That's just a software change of how it's
Yeah.
built. That's all.
Oh, that
Yeah.
if
It-
it
it all
is
be-
that simple, then
Yeah,
yeah.
it's just they measure your kilowatt hours now, so the
Yeah, that's true.
kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
It's billing by minute.
In fact, the software is
It should-
probably in there. These systems are probably designed to do it both ways.
Yeah.
And all you need to do, they would have to do is flick a switch, you know, and it's
Yeah.
frustrating. I find it eminently
Ex-
frustrating. In fact,
Okay.
the whole bit about the hydrogen car, I mean, Geozone's got a point. And if it's costing them that much to charge, it's untenable. I think why he's going to 100% doesn't make any sense, because you get almost no more range in that last 7% or whatever it is that it slows way down, or even 10%. It doesn't make it number. And why doesn't he just buy 2 more cars and get rid of the trailers? Anyway.
Yeah.
Apparently he's doing that with hydrogen cars, so why wouldn't he just do that? Anyway. So
he did say though that they needed every kilometer they could get because of the route they're taking.
He said the solution with the hydrogen car, because they can't tow trailers, was to buy more of them. So why not just buy more electric cars? And then he's got lots of range, because it's the trailer that's dragging the range down.
Yeah.
He could charge to 75% and have enough if he got rid of the trailer.
What's the CB, or what is the Tesla charging at the superchargers now? What's the rate?
21 cents a minute under 50K and 26 cents a minute over, something like that. The faster it charges, the higher it goes.
What was that? I'm sorry, I missed it.
21 cents per minute charging below, maybe it's below 70 kilowatt hours. And above that, it's 26 cents a minute, I believe. It works out to about 35 cents a kilowatt hour if your car will receive the flow at a full rate. You could say a nickel a kilometer is your cost. And that's based on time. That's my experience. I just did a trip to Caramios and charged both with the CHAdeMO adapter and at the supercharger, and they both worked out to close. And the trip averaged a nickel a kilometer.
Unless you're long distance traveling, you're not using the supercharger anyways, right, David?
That's right.
We don't use it around home. We just plug her in and
Plug her in at night. I know. I got up
Really
once
is
at night. I saw
really
it.
is a large factor.
It's like Santa Claus, if you get him up in the night at the right time, catch it.
Have you noticed that in the parking garages, how so many of the chargers are sitting empty? So
Yeah.
I went into a luncheon the other day, last Wednesday, and I pulled into the parking garage, and I had the option. There was no one at the chargers, so and they were $3 an hour there. And so I had about half a charge. I says, well, instead of spending $2 an hour, or whatever it is for the parking fee, I would do this and get a charge as well. So my bill came to $7 because I was there for a bit more than 2 hours. And I think I got like 11 kilowatt hours or 12 kilowatt hours charged. So it was a pretty expensive charge. But on the other hand, I didn't pay for parking.
Well, 21 cents a minute is like $12 an hour, right? It's not cheap, but it's cheaper than gas. Still, a lot. Like a third. Not a third less, 60, 70% less. Anyway, my trip to Caramios and back was $40 in electricity. That's home charging, supercharging, CHAdeMO adapter just to check it out. And my neighbor, my friend rather, that I visited overnight, about 120 Ks worth at 110 volt, and working it out at the rate he would be paying, same as me at home. And that all added up to $40, actually about 17 cents under $40. Well, pretty damn cheap for 900 kilometers of driving.
The time trials are on for the American Grand Prix on channel 902 or whatever. So if you want to watch.
Okay, Don, we'll see you later.
American GP, yes.
Thanks for dropping in.
So long, guys. Good to see you all again. It's been a while. And
very good.
There's so much stuff happening at the moment.
There is. There's a lot. And I'd like to sit back and just watch it.
Another question. How do you feel about people from other provinces joining this club?
We don't have a problem. We actually have a huge number of people who live in Australia who think that we're with the Victoria EV Association there.
Well done.
No, we do.
As long as we're vaccinated, we'll accept anybody.
Yeah.
Triple.
Exactly.
I want to see 3 vaccinations, 4 by this time next week. Just keep pumping the juice into you.